This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Hello out there. Welcome to episode 134 of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sedita. Today, I'm joined by Adam Parks. He is the president and financial advisor for Trinity Wealth Management. Adam, how you doing today?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on with us. Just to give you a little bit of background on what the Good Neighbor Podcast is and how we got started. Back in 2020 during COVID, when everybody had to be socially distant, the Good Neighbor Podcast was started in Southwest Florida as a way for business owners there to be able to get their message out to the community, to people they're trying to reach for business and philanthropic groups and things like that. And then over the last 4 years, it has evolved into a national brand. So we have Good Neighbor Podcasts, Florida, Georgia, Virginia, Colorado. They're all over the U.S. I'm lucky enough to be the person here in Tampa that gets to talk to business owners and entrepreneurs like you. And with that said, tell us a little bit about Trinity Wealth Management.
Well, we're an independent financial advisory firm. We've got a couple of offices, two in Tampa and one in Clearwater. Been in business for about coming up on our 9th year in business. Originally came from Chicago, and when I moved down here, I started up the firm. And we're an independent firm. We're all fiduciaries, and we service basically a lot of small business owners, families, and also specialize in veterans and first responders.
And where are you guys? Do you guys have an office? Do you guys work out of your homes?
No, we've got two physical locations in Tampa, one off of Linebaugh, one in Northdale. So I guess you could say West Chase and in Carrollwood area, and then another one in Clearwater.
Okay, wow, that's great. Okay, so you're in Pinellas and Hillsborough County.
Yep.
People sometimes get this confused. It's a Good Neighbor Podcast, Pasco, because I'm located in Pasco. But once this goes out, it's going to go out everywhere, not just Tampa,
Sure.
But we could even get it back to Chicago. Maybe Justin Fields could hear a little bit of it. Maybe get him excited to go and get the Bears recharged for next year. A little bit of your story. So, were you always, like financially conscious money guy, or were you have dreams and hopes of playing for the Cubs or the White Sox and gave up on that to do this?
Yeah, not so far-fetched dreams on that regard. No, actually, so I was in the mortgage industry for about 15 years, had a great run for a long time. And then it was in 2008 through 2010. We all remember those days, hard hit areas. Yeah. And being in the mortgage industry, there was really nowhere to go. I lost my job at the time, and I really wanted to understand why it happened to me and make sure that wasn't going to happen to me in the future, because I had a wife and 2 kids at the time, and we just got financially decimated.
Yeah.
So I was kind of on a mission at that point to learn what I could, and then the further I started keeping going, the more I got interested in being a part of this industry and helping others.
And how long have you been down here?
I've been down here since 2015. It was right after the polar vortex that hit up north, and my wife and I, after being frozen inside for 6 days, we're like, that's it. We got to punch out.
Time to go.
Time to go.
It's funny. I grew up in the Northeast, and when I moved to Atlanta in 2008, I gave my ex-father-in-law my snowblower. I said, listen, he lived in Rochester. You're going to get use out of a snowblower in Rochester. But I said, look, you can keep it and use it. You could sell it for parts. You could make it into a planter. I don't care what you do it. I'm never coming back up here. I'm done. I'm washing my hands of it. So I can appreciate and get that whole, like the last straw storm to get you to go.
Definitely.
And you have a wife and 2 kids. How old are your kids?
They're 2 daughters. They're 15 and 17. The loves of my life, and boy, they keep me on my toes. That's for sure. I live with nothing but women, so.
I was gonna say, you have like a female dog. Is your dog
2.
a female?
I have 2 male dogs. 2 male dogs. Got to balance
that. Okay, so
out.
you got at least you have a little bro group right there to kind of get away and do your thing when you need to get away from the girls and your wife. Oh, yep. I totally get it. I can so relate. My girlfriend, her daughter, their dog, their bunny, everybody's like females. It's like me and Norman need to just kind of escape from time to time. So I can totally relate. So let me ask you this. You talked about some of the people you service, and veterans is a big part of that. Is there any more to the story behind that?
Yeah, I'm a veteran myself. I was in the military for up until 1998. And so, what we go through and what military families in particular go through is quite hard to balance it all. So I know what kind of a stress that can put on a family. So I've always said that anybody that comes to us as a veteran, we're doing free financial planning, and we try to do a lot of pro bono work. We're about education. And then that kind of filtered into, after 9/11 especially, appreciation for first responders, the lack of the support and praise for the members of the police department, fire department, and nurses and teachers. My wife was a teacher for 22 years, and those are the people that work the hardest and nobody pays attention to. So we could stand up and help them any way we can. That's what we're going to do.
And then, so, I mean, that is absolutely great. I'm a huge proponent of the military and first responders and all that stuff. And they're usually the people that are, you not only say working the hardest, but least compensated for the amount of work proportionately to what they do. So having someone in your corner to help with that. Do you live generally close to one of the offices, or are you up in Pasco County?
No, I'm actually in Odessa. So I'm right on the bottom of north of Hillsborough County. And but we service people in Hernando, Pasco, all over the area, really. Sarasota.
Well, that's why I asked. Trinity Wealth Management. I didn't know if that was like an Irish Trinity, Holy Trinity, or if it was because you lived in Trinity. Didn't know if that was.
No, that's a great question, actually. So when I left my previous big box firm and wanted to go out on my own and really service the clients the way that we wanted to service them, I was living in Odessa. Had no idea that there was a city of Trinity north of me, and I just had to pick a name over a weekend, literally. And a lot of it was that my wife and my two daughters is like my holy trinity. Everything. Cash management, risk management, wealth management, everything threes kept repeating. And so I'm like, you know what, that sounds like an awesome number. Plus the girl in Matrix, Trinity, that was a cool thing too. So
listen, if we're going to start talking movies now, we're going to have that is a revolutionary movie that changed everything. And Trinity in that biker outfit, all right, so now we know the real reason why. We won't tell your wife or your daughters the real reason how the company got its name.
Oh, they know.
So let me ask you this then. So, doing what you do and being where you're at when you're not, well, first question I have for you is like, how big is your team? Yeah. Like how big, you have two offices. How many are you calling them just FAs, or are we just financial advisors? Are we wealth management advisors? How many guys and gals do you have on your team?
Yeah, we've got 7 advisors, financial advisors right now. Most of us are accredited investment fiduciaries, kind of a tongue twister, but which makes us, we stand a little bit higher on the rankings for what we put ourselves out there to do for our clients. So we're fiduciaries. We act in clients' best interests above our own. And then we have some juniors that are in training that are coming up. We call them service advisors, not necessarily juniors. And then I have a couple of partners as well.
You don't say little guys? You don't refer to them as the little guys in the office? That would be derogatory.
Service as hard as they work, yeah, for sure. Yep.
So okay, so the next question I had from that is that's a big group of people to manage when you're not in the office. I mean, what are you and your wife? I mean, your girls are at an age. Are they into sports? Are they into cheering? Or like, what are they doing? Are they into acting? And then what do you and your wife do for fun?
Yeah, the girls are, well, my oldest, Maddie, who I'm super proud of, she's actually working in the office with us after school, getting a little experience. Both of them have said that they want to go into the industry, so we'll hopefully that'll happen. But the oldest is working for me. Our youngest has got schoolwork, and academics is really her priority. And then she also has a part-time job as well. So they're both workers like their mom and dad. And my wife and I, we've got a great marriage. She's retired, which is good. Helps to be married to a financial planner who can plan for her retirement. But she worked for 22. Yeah, she worked for teacher for 22 years. Came to Florida, had another career in corporate America, and then just burned out. But for fun, what we do, we just love going on the boat. We spend a lot of time on our boat, and then ironically, what a lot of people would never guess is that I'm a massive reggae fan. So I like to. We manage money for some reggae artists. I go to almost all the shows that come to local areas, the recording studios, you name it. I just want to be a part of that scene. It's so fun.
That's great. It's funny. I work owning an ad agency for a long time. I work with a bunch of different creative people. I wasn't creative. I was more on the money side, the media buying side. But I worked with all these creative agencies. And there was a creative agency out of Charleston, South Carolina. This guy, he was about 5'2", white guy. He was a lead singer in a reggae band, and he was absolutely phenomenal. And he was the most creative, one of the most creative, like art visionary guys with his advertising, the way he would create stuff. He was amazing, but his side hustle, not even a hustle, was just his enjoyment was going out and performing reggae with his steel drum and his steel drum band and the whole nine. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a positive vibe. Everybody's always in a good mood. So how can you not have fun with it?
Yeah. The music just kind of gets you in that vibe. It's you think of the islands and the smell of the salt and the beach and all that stuff. It kind of puts you in that mental place. So let me ask you this. I mean, and you might have already answered this in the conversation is, do you one of the things I like to ask, especially because if there's business owners listening to this, now obviously if you're talking to clients that are listening to this, they want to hear about your background and your specialty and what you do. But business owners like to listen to find out, look, how has this other business owner run into a challenge in their career as an entrepreneur and they've been able to overcome it? So I don't know if that was, 08, gotten out of the mortgage business, if it was 9/11, if it your military experience. Has there been a point in your career where you said, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to get through this, and you managed to like dig yourself out to be in the spot where you have a good crew of people?
Yeah. I feel like it keeps happening, right? I mean, you always keep learning through adversity. So yeah, I mean, things in the military happened, burned through that, and then the mortgage with 08, they had to survive through that and redirect and rechange what the strategy was and what the goals were. And then in this industry alone, moving to Florida, having to start over again, wanting to get away from the big box shops. It's really all about numbers, not necessarily about clients, and starting something completely new as an entrepreneur and growing that, and then finding success. And then there's problems with taxes. So it's always seems to be some sort of a headache. And that's really where I specialize pretty heavily is small business owners and high net worth people, not because you want to work with higher net worth people, but it's those sets of challenges really not a lot of people are talking about them. So that's where I get my hands dirty. I really like solving the puzzles and figuring out ways to lower taxes and help businesses create some scale without having to kill themselves, because you get to that point where, yes, I mean, so great, look at the end of the year number, and then April comes and you're like, oh, I just want to jump off a building because you get so hit in taxes. So we try to get ahead of that and do some tax planning in advance of that and really help out those business owners. So yeah, there's always struggles they're coming up, but I guess you just keep building and you keep on working through them. Don't really have much of a choice when you got kids at home and a wife that depends on you.
Well, and then you also, it's kind of a living, breathing animal. And what I'm talking about is like the tax code in our country. Like every year, well, every 4 years, in essence, when a new administration takes hold and kind of shifts their priorities of who's going to be the haves and the have-nots, and certain things, just nuance changes. And knowing that, being on the inside of that is vitally important.
Oh yeah. So many people have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, do you have also within your organization, I mean, I know as a fiduciary, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your client, but from a tax standpoint, do you have people you either outsource or that are in-house that they could be like your one-stop shop for somebody, from the investment side to the wealth management side to the tax mitigation side?
Yeah, it's a great segue, even though it's completely unplanned, by the way, Mike. Thank you for
I've done this a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, home run there. No, we actually this year we're going to be bringing on a tax department. We've always been we've had partners, outside business partners, that have been there as resources to our clients, and they've been great. But they grow too, and then the relationship changes. So we're going to have that in-house. This year we added estate planning so we can get our wills, trusts, estate plans done. All that's in-house. So now we have investments, insurance, legal, and tax. I mean, that's truly, they call it a family office, the one-stop shop, because I think it's important to have one relationship and one quarterback to take care of all of your things financially. Because as business owners, we're busy. If I could have one point of contact to take care of all my money stuff and make sure that's all taken care of in a fiduciary manner, I mean, that's a pretty powerful offering.
It is a good marriage. I mean, you might have to change the name from Trinity. You might have to change it to Clover or something like that, because that was 4.
Actually, that's funny. My dream has always been the 4-leaf clover. I wanted investment, insurance, legal, and tax. So
there you go. I mean, DBA it, and you got a whole other branch there that you could, kind of go into. But it is a natural synergy of those different, branches of what people have going on. And for me, on the flip side of it, like owning an ad agency, I never really did the creative side of it. I'm not good at the creative side of it. I spent 20 years in corporate finance, working for insurance companies and different types of firms. So when I got into the media side of it, it was still numbers for me. I was looking at people's budgets, figuring out what the best way to reach their audience was and putting the media together that way. But I worked with creative people, as previously mentioned, that would do the creative side of it. I had so many different, if you talk about like from an analogy of like a general contractor, I had so many subs that I could use to do specific stuff and customized everything for a specific client. Because you touched on it, and I talked about this on another podcast recently, is that the one commodity that the planet does not replenish is time. The one thing people can't get back is time. So as a business owner, if you have to be head of sales, head of operations, head of accounting, head of marketing, having all those things that you have to do and then manage your business and human resources and all these other things, it's super overwhelming as a business owner to go, man, I always wanted to work and be my own boss. And all of a sudden I'm like, now this sucks. I got to work 23 hours a day and it's terrible.
Yeah. There goes nights and weekends. Yeah. I mean, you really don't realize that when you start off.
It's the same thing. I worked in a corporate job forever. And I remember I was working at 100 Park Avenue in New York City. And I worked next to this guy and he said, you know what? I'm sick of this. And this is going back 1993-ish. And he said, this sucks. I don't want to work in an office anymore. I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I remember at the time going, wow, it sounds so great. Like making my own hours. Oh, sounds great. And then I didn't realize that the steady paycheck doesn't come unless I actually work enough hours to generate the income level. So there's like a catch-22 to that whole situation. But when you're out there doing it and there's no net, having resources like, having Trinity Wealth Management and someone out there who now can handle all these different branches down the tree, it makes your business scalable. It gives you the ability to grow. And then on top of that, it gives you some of the commodity that's not replenishable. And that's time if you have a family and you want to enjoy the things that you want to do.
You think about it, we never got this education growing up. I mean, nobody ever taught anybody this. So it's no surprise that people are struggling to figure out, where do I go for the education without being, intimidated or taken advantage of, or right. So it's hard. It's a challenge for sure.
It's funny you say that. Is I don't know what I took geometry for in high school. I have no idea why I know the Pythagorean theorem. I have no idea what I needed it for. I would have rather had an investing class or just understanding. I mean, you don't have to do it anymore. Balancing your checkbook. I'm old enough to remember balancing my checkbook on a ledger. But that doesn't even necessarily need to be done as much anymore with technology. But like some of those real world practical math equations that boggle people for years and years would have been much more productive than learning a squared plus b squared equals c squared, for me at least.
100%.
So let me ask you this: in your military background, and you don't have to get into specifics of it, did that kind of guide you towards this, or were you like an infantry guy, or like what was any of that kind of guide you towards wanting to get into business?
No, actually, it was just I came from a family that couldn't afford college, so I was really faced with my parents split up. Yeah, my parents split up right when I got in there, so it was a matter of got to find something to do. And no, it's not an easy choice, but I went field artillery and did that for a while. It did help as far as structure, discipline, and things like 100%. That's for sure. But as far as money, I mean, we never had it as a kid, so I didn't know what I was missing. But then I just knew that I wanted to have a better life for my kids and my family and go on vacations. I mean, my parents were very hard workers, but we struggled.
Right. Scraping by and put a little bit of money away for this and that and the other. Yeah, it's definitely.
Again, lack of education. They would have done better had they known, had they only been given some education.
Well, it's funny. I don't know your age or your parents' age. My parents are both gone now and they passed away in their late 70s, early 80s, but their idea of investing was putting their money in their local savings account in our local savings and loan. I mean, that was what you did. Like a CD was like mind blowing to them. An annuity was like a head explosion to them. Like, so they just didn't grasp it at all. And they were baby boomers and we just didn't really know it. We didn't know what it was. We had those passport savings books when we were in grade school. We put $5 in every week or whatever it was. That was the extent of our savings plan.
Yeah, well, you think about it, back then, they didn't even have to worry that much about it because they had pensions. And then in the
Right.
80s and 70s, yeah, that all went away. So now they push that onus back on the people without any education to go along with it. So it's really sad. And it's no surprise that there's such a need for what we do in our practice. And that's why we wanted to set ourselves aside with like the fee base. So there's not the commissions, no conflicts of
Right.
interest. We were going to level the field so people don't have that anxiety when they come to see us because nobody wants to talk about money. It's a personal, private thing. Yeah, and no matter where, if you're above me or below me, there's always that, kind of figuring things out. So we just make it really easy for people. Like, come on in, let's just talk. Let's figure your stuff
It's
out. I'll tell you what's in my head, and if we work out, what works out. If not, no obligation. They can just keep doing what they're doing or go seek the education on their own.
it's so funny you say that. I worked for a woman in the same job I'm talking about, 1992, a woman by the name of Rhonda Feldman, nicest lady in the world. I learned a lot from her while I was going to college. And she made it, she sat me down one day and said, Mike, I'm going to tell you right now, you're handling people's money. Money is the biggest taboo in the world. And
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was 19 or 20 years old. I couldn't quite grasp where she was going with it. And she said, listen, you go to a party and sit down with somebody, they'll tell you what their drink is, what their drug is, what their sex life is like, all their different things that they do. But when it comes to their money, nobody wants to talk about it and express what it is. Everybody either wants to hide it or shelter it or either claim they have way more than they do have. There's always some sort of shadiness and taboo about the conversation around money. So it is a super hard conversation to have with people because they either think, holy crap, I'm behind the eight ball, I didn't start soon enough, or holy crap, like I